Thanks for joining us and listening to another God-lived and God-breathed message by Darius Nelms. Our mission is to increase our generation standard back to God's standard of excellence and kingdom living through personal development, relational wisdom, business management, and faith increase. Our aim is that this message inspires and infuses you to reach your next level of living and helps you discover your rightful place in God's kingdom. Now, let's dive into the message.
Friends, thank you so much for joining me on this video in which we are discussing strategy 3 of my latest book, Why Me? 5 strategies for how good people can overcome bad situations. This is strategy 3, which is focusing on the strategy of strategic withdrawal. That's right, the strategy of strategic withdrawal. This is a strategy that's needed for people that have been betrayed and have experienced tumultuous situations with people that has left them scarred and maybe even fragmented, that has left them emotionally scarred and wounded. This strategy is specifically for you to help you heal and to help you gain clarity as well as to why these things have happened. So this is strategy 3. And so the idea of the strategy of strategic withdrawal, as I talk about in the first section, is hiding to heal, okay? Hiding to heal. The Bible teaches in Psalms chapter 91 about finding the secret place of the Most High. And this hiding is actually safety and refuge from the external wars that are waged against you socially and spiritually. And so you have to withdraw and you have to retreat in the presence of God so that you can get away from the stakes of the war, okay, from the stakes of the war. When we look at retreating from a biblical standpoint, we see David was being pursued by his mentor Saul aggressively, physically. And so David had to retreat for some time. You know, he was often found in caves, in the depths and the darknesses of caves. When you look at the Israelites, they had to retreat to the desert after leaving Egypt. In their retreat to the desert, God was able to begin detoxing them from Egypt's culture so that he could try to download his culture, not try, but so that he could download his culture within them. Jesus has another example, retreated for 40 days to get away from the people and the noise and all of that stuff to build up his spiritual house so that when he emerged, he would be able to show the disciples in human form what it took to maintain a certain level of spiritual excellence, because retreating is power. In our modern day society, many people experience church hurt, as I talk about in the book. And many people often say, don't forsake the assembly of the brethren. And to me, that's very manipulative and dismissive toward the things that cause people to be scarred by the institution of church. And that's not popular, but it's right. A lot of times, church settings are toxic. Many times, church settings are manipulative. There are more churches and church settings that are within that category than those that are integrous and pure, right? Trying to follow the model and the mode of Jesus. And so when someone experiences church hurt, one of the best things that they can do, and it's not limited to this, but it's one of the things that they can do, is to retreat, to reduce their influence from those toxic people, because it's not a matter of just gathering, but the question is, what are we gathering to and with, right? If we're part of a toxic religious culture and setting, and the church seems to be no different from the world, I think that that's something that has to be reassessed and reevaluated. And so even when it pertains to church hurt, instead of guilt tripping them, provide them with the support that they need, letting them know that you are there for them and with them, that although they may be retreating from the setting, that you'll bring yourself to them to aid and to support them and to gather with them and to pray with them and all of the other things until the moment and the time is right for them to come back and reemerge back into the setting that's needed with the congregation. Because the biggest thing is you want to make sure that you are healing and that when you get back with people that you are healed, because the saying goes, hurt people. And so you want to make sure that you are not bleeding on people, right? You want to make sure that you are that you aren't bleeding on people. Very much similar to in the Bible, when the religious people were trying to stone the woman who had committed adultery, Jesus stepped in and he protected her. Not only protected her, but he also gave her instruction. But see, that's what I mean about being in settings, even with the religious leaders that were getting ready to stone her because she had committed adultery or whatever the case is. And Jesus wrote whatever he wrote in the sand, and all of those people walked away because he said those without sin must cast the first stone. And so they realized their sin, and in their realization, they walked away. And that's Jesus protecting this young girl from the toxicity of religious groups and systems, right? Because there was another way. That wasn't the way according to Jesus, but there was another way. Because again, as I said earlier, you want to make sure that you are not bleeding on other people. In this example of not bleeding on other people, I used the example here in the book in Strategy 3 about mending your nets, right? Mending your nets. And when you understand the art of fishing and you understand the art of catching fish, you understand that in mending your net is repairing your net so that your net can function properly when it's time to catch fish. If your net is not mended, when you go to catch fish, you will lose fish along the way. And if you are in the fishing business or you are a fishing enterprise, every fish that you catch matters, and it provides income for yourself, for your family, right? But if your nets are not mended, then you will lose fish, and to lose fish is to lose income. And to lose income means that you are unable to fully support your family. So the idea of mending your nets is the parallelism of healing yourself so that you can make sure that you are operating at full function. It's not talking about perfection, but it's talking about operating at full function, meaning that you are able to be healed so that you don't bleed on other people, so that you don't infect other people, but that you are able to be around other people with a proper perspective, that you are able to pour onto people the wisdom of God, and that you are not dumping your hurt on the people of God, right? And so that's the idea of mending your net. And another part of the strategy that is talked about is the strategy of strategic non-engagement, meaning that when you are being pursued and aggressively attacked by an enemy, you want to make sure that that's the time that you retreat and that you don't necessarily engage. Because in that retreat, you're not only hiding, and you're not hiding because you're afraid and you're scared, but you're hiding so that you can gain perspective from the other side. You're hiding and you're not engaging in the threat and in the attack because you want to gain perspective from the other side. What is it that they could be doing? Why is it that they're doing what they're doing? What could be their next move, etc.? You're able to take a step back and look at it from a macro level and look at it from being outside of the snow globe, if you will. You want to make sure that in your retreat, like David, that you are able to gain perspective. And more times than not, when you strategically disengage from the attack that's waged on you, then guess what? Your enemy is bound to make a mistake that will make them fall right into your hands, right? Right into your hands. And so this is also the idea of letting the winter pass, right? Letting the winter pass. And this is something that I learned through reading, which is retreating is not negative, but it's actually a positive tool to help you gain perspective, because bad situations can rob us of a proper and a positive perspective, even permanently, if we are not trained to endure, right? If you are not trained to endure. And so this is understanding why it is necessary to retreat, because this desert-like experience in retreat, again, as I used with the nation of Israel when God brought them into the desert, for example, is considered empty. And in its emptiness, all that you have is the sun and the sand. And There's little to no life in the desert. And so when you retreat to the desert, when you are under attack, you are able to hear God clearly because there's nothing there to distract you. In our modern world, when things are going on, it's so easy to get on our phones and to call everybody and to have these long, drawn-out conversations. It's easy when you're being attacked to get on social media and find memes that fit how you're feeling and to post them to your story and to post them on your page to make you feel better, but you are running to what God never called you to in the midst of attack, in the midst of being attacked by an enemy. You want to experience the desert. You want to go to a place where it is just you and God. There's a friend of mine that was going through a bad situation, and he was talking to various people, which I get because he's an awesome young man. And he called me, and we were talking, and I offered him just a smidget of advice. And the advice that I gave him was to get off social media, to deactivate his social media. He's talked with enough people to quit talking to people, and guess what? To just go spend some time with God for the next couple of days. See, I encouraged him to have a desert-like experience because, again, it's so easy for us to run to social media. It's so easy for us to run to other people. But when you are being attacked and when you are facing battles that you would prefer not to face, the number one thing that you ought to do is to disengage. Disengage from social media, disengage from social settings, and retreat to where you can have one-on-one time with God for a couple of days so that you can hear clearly from God. Because when you are concerned with what other people think, as a former mentor of mine would say, it will affect the way that you think. When you are concerned with what other people think, it will affect the way that you think. And so you want to gain clarity on your own thoughts, and more importantly, you want to gain clarity on the thoughts of God regarding your situation. And so you have to disengage from the social sphere, from social media and from social settings. Not saying that you won't reemerge, because the retreat is not permanent. Retreating in this spiritual context is never permanent, but retreating is so that you can gain clarity, you can regain momentum, you can regain strength so that you can reemerge. But it's not permanent. It's not permanent. Even when we look at in the New Testament, we look at Peter. Peter had made a very terrible mistake relative to denying Jesus 3 times, and Jesus told him that he would, but he didn't adhere to what Jesus was saying. So after Peter had realized that he had made this mistake, Peter in John chapter 21, verse 3, he said that I am going out to fish. Simon Peter told them, and they said, we'll go with you. So in other words, what Peter was doing, Peter said that I am going on a fishing retreat. I have to get away from this stuff, and I have to go out into the water. Now, it's very important that when they went on this fishing retreat that they caught nothing. They caught nothing. But when they finished the fishing retreat, Jesus was at the shore cooking for them. And they didn't recognize him, but Peter quickly recognized Jesus, and he swam, I think it was about 100 yards, which is the length of a football field. Peter jumped in the water and swam to Jesus. And it probably would have been a lot more efficient for him to get to Jesus by boat. But Peter was so anxious and he was needing restoration that he jumped in the water and swam to Jesus from a distance. And when he met with Jesus, Jesus restored Peter. And that's what Peter deeply needed. But the only way he was able to see Jesus on the shore is when he was able to retreat, when he was able to retreat. And so the idea of retreating, again, is that it's not permanent, but that is that you gain restoration through retreat. You are able to be restored when you retreat, right? You are able to be restored when you retreat. So this is strategy 3, friends. The strategy of strategic withdrawal. That's right, the strategy of strategic withdrawal. And I hope this was a help to you. Please make sure you get a copy of this book, digital PDF, or even the audio book. And it will be available with the links below in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, friends. Until next time, peace.
May the Lord bless you, keep you, and make his face shine upon you. As we abide in his grace, presence, and peace, remember that you are an agent of change wherever your feet shall tread. Thanks for listening to this message and for the opportunity to teach and lead you. Until next time.